To the Strategy and Policy Committee meeting for today, the 28th of March. Lovely to have you all with us. Pardon? Good. I oha ki runga ki a ranganui. I oha ki raro ki a papatuanuku. Turakina ngā mea kino ki te pai atia. Uhia mai o Korowai Aroha. He taonga mā mātou, ka puta ki te wai o au, ki te ao marama, humie, huie, taikie. We greet those things above the sky, the heavens, we acknowledge those things below, the earth in all its entirety. Cast all negativity to the distant horizons. Cover us with the cloak of affection and love as a treasure bestowed upon us, so we may enter into enlightenment. Let it be bound and fixed, yes fixed, let it be agreed by all. What a fine way to start. Here too. Te awa tupua mai te kia hui manga ki tangaro ka wakapiri a mai kona peringa ko tama upoko tupoho te kie ko te awa ko te awa ko erere te awa tupua. Thank you. I had the lovely experience of travelling up to Hiruharama earlier in the week with the Tama Upoko, thank you, Link meeting, and Josh was co-chairing it, and he chose to end the meeting with Aviary, which was really lovely, you know, being by the river. So, apologies. We've got apologies from the Deputy Mayor, Helen, or Acting Mayor. We don't need an apology from Andrew because he's got a leave of absence. We've got an apology from Councillor Vinson, who will be about 15 minutes late. Any other apologies? Oh, we'll be finished by 1, well and truly. Thank you, Ross. So I'm putting those apologies. Would someone like to second that? Thank you, Charlie. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Are there any declarations of interest in relation to items of business before the meeting today? Nobody? Cool. Additional information. We have a motion to accept the additional information that's been provided. So the following additional information is tabled with the relevant items. The annual plan consultation document draft version is at the 27th of March. The fees and charges 2023-2024 statement of proposal, and the supporting information document 2023-24 full financials, and they're all in relation to item 5.3. So would someone like to put that what do we receive those? Are we receiving those, or just
we're just
noting them, tabling them?
Yeah, we'll just grab up for a second.
Okay, thanks Glenda. Thanks Charlotte. Any discussion? All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Good, right choice. Carried. Oh, the chair should never give an opinion, should she, on which way you're voting? All right, last time, I won't do it again. Confirmation of the minutes, that the minutes of the Strategy and Policy Committee meeting held on the 22nd of February 2023 are confirmed as a true and correct record. Would someone like to move that? Thank you, Peter. We got to say thank you, Josh. Any discussion? All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Right, reports to the committee. So we're on to items 5.1 on page 12. I tell you what, the democracy team have got this so well oiled. Fantastic. Yeah, it's all right, it'll keep coming. Hello, Harriet. Welcome to the hot seat. Would you like to launch us into this first item of business today?
Thank you. Kia ora, I'm Harriet, the Community Activator as part of the Community Wellbeing team, and as part of my role I coordinate the Welcoming Communities program. So the program started here in 2018 and since then has shown itself as a successful way of bringing council and our community together to create a more welcoming city for newcomers. So the paper here outlines the proposed new welcoming plan actions and recommends option 1 outlined in the paper, that the Strategy and Policy Committee recommend the actions go to Council for endorsement. The previous plan has set a fantastic foundation over the past 5 years, but it is now outdated, and a new updated plan will give us more consolidation and growth heading into the next era. The 48 actions included in the attachment build on the previous plan. Some are new, but many are continuing or improving the work done to date. And to help navigate the plan, the 8 outcomes and 30 sub-outcomes that are listed are set nationally by the Welcoming Communities program led by Immigration NZ, and then Council and our community work together to create the actions underneath it which work towards these. So I'll take the paper as read and I'm happy to answer any questions.
We have questions. Peter.
Yes, thank you, Harriet. Two questions. The Welcoming Communities Advisory Group, who are they and what do they consist of?
Question. It is a group that consists of a diverse members of our community across multiple different multicultural groups, but also agencies or groups that support newcomers to Wanganui. So, for instance, Citizens Advice Bureau, the police. They have an ethnic liaison officer, multicultural council, and groups such as that.
And the second question is, the grant that they get, does that go through the grants committee or the community? You know, like a standard thing, or is it a contested one?
Yes, it is a contestable grant. I'm not sure of its placement in the grants. The funding committee, I'm not fully up to date with where that's at, so I probably won't. I can get more information on that and get back to you. But it has been in working over the past year and a half, whereby groups apply, and across me and my team we assess based on criteria.
Yeah, okay, that's all, thank you.
Linda.
Thanks, Harriet. Loved this document. I got out the old one and the new one and looked through them, and I love all the changes. It's really great. I'm just wondering if on 5.31, where it says investigating the inclusion of a new category at the local business awards, could the responsibility of that be changed to Business Wanganui? Because it's which is Chamber of Commerce. They're the ones that are responsible for executing the business awards. And just further down on 5.52, just change the name from Wanganui Chamber of Commerce to Business Wanganui, which it's rebranded now. Is that able to?
Yeah, really good points.
Great, thank you, and
Thank you.
great document, thank you.
We'll take that up with gusto when the chair of the Chamber of Commerce or Business Wanganui suggests that they take responsibility for something. We're all good with it.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Glenda. Michael?
So kind of answers my question for me a little bit, but where do I find the delta between the changes of current state and future state, and I guess the feedback from people to state why this was changed? Is that like a, Glenda might answer that one, but like where do I find that information?
Sure. I mean, for brevity's sake, I didn't include it all in the paper here, but we did do quite a comprehensive review where we looked at every action in the previous plan, where they, or how much had been achieved to date, whether it was still relevant, whether it had been completed, and what, if it wasn't completed, what could be done more. So I do have a
I'd
fairly
love to see
comprehensive
it. Thank you, though.
review paper.
Ross?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your report. I've only just got one question. On page 19, it talks about section 7, welcoming public spaces, and it refers to culturally appropriate and reflects the diversity of the community. So my key word is diversity. And then I go to section 8, culture and identity. My question is, was there consideration to highlight the word diversity? Because diversity, there's at least 9 areas of diversity, potentially 14 or more, depending on where you reference it. To what degree do you believe diversity has been either identified, explained, or incorporated into that document, other than the 2 sections I've raised? Could it be an area of further focus?
Yeah, I think I understand your question. I guess cultural diversity is through the entirety of this. So I guess that is the underpinning.
Perhaps I didn't clarify myself.
Sorry. Possibly.
I understand cultural diversity, but within diversity, there is people with disability, there's neurodiverse people, there's ethnicity, there's orientation and lifestyles. So, and there's a lot more than that. So I just wonder whether there's capacity for either a definition to be put into that to show recognition rather than just saying diversity, that it represents a little bit more information.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes. Good point. I guess the program is underpinned by Immigration NZ being a settlement support program. So the main focus is ethnic diversity relating to newcomers. So former refugees, migrants, and international students. And yes, we can make that more clear.
Thank you.
So just to follow on from that, so this is the action plan. There is an actual, I just saw the words, a welcoming plan that sits above this. Is that, like, what is the document that gives the principles, if you like?
Sure.
Because what Ross's conversation suggests to me is more of perhaps a principle,
Yes.
sort of umbrella. You know, that's where you put your definitions, etc. So can you talk to me a little bit about that, Harriet?
Sure. So it might be helpful with the previous. This is what we're working towards. This was the previous plan, which hopefully does give a bit more context to the actions and how they came about. What's a snapshot of our city. So that's what we're updating and will be recreating in an updated version. But sitting above that is Immigration NZ's, or the Welcoming Communities Program's standard, which is the 8 outcomes that we're working towards, and those have been set nationally through co-design with the community. So I guess there is an overarching national plan on top of this, but we are creating the local actions. Not sure if that added clarity.
It's there somewhere, yeah.
Sure. So as we socialise this new action plan, it will have a couple of pages or something that will set the context for it and talk about diversity, and it's the sense that Ross is talking about it. Yeah, quite important, isn't it, that we anchor back to what we're doing and why we're doing it, not just what we're doing. Awesome, thank you. Philippa.
Yeah, thank you, Harriet. Great. Look, just on that, I think why I read like point 22, there's no financial considerations to be considered. I just think it would be useful for us to know or to be clear, and our community. Whether you know, my understanding, is it DIA that this welcoming community sits under, and it mentions in here about some grant funding. Just in regard to what is the, is there a ratepayer cost to this? I'm just having a quick look at our long-term plan. I think it's fairly small, 22,000 maybe. And where we get, there's quite a bit of external funding. Is that correct? And can you give us a bit of a brief on that?
Perhaps a reminder. Do you know the history about, so if you start with that, Harriet, maybe.
Sure. So it was, when it first came out as a national pilot program, there was funding attached to it, which we received for 3 years. I'm going to quickly check with Lauren. From the years 2017 to 2019 or 20, that period of time. So that pilot program has now ended, and council took up the program mainly through my role, but it does have some funding attached to it, largely going into the $8,000 Welcoming Activities grant, which is the contestable funding.
Yeah, just a bit closer.
Right, just for, that's a grant, so that part of our funding, our small bit of funding might be about 24K or so. About 8,000 of that goes into a contestable grant. And at this stage, there's no external funding, but is there mechanisms, is there still, was it completely cut off, or is there other areas of it that are available to look at any external funding?
We can look at external funding for specific projects, and we did receive some further project funding from MB for the stained glass window, which we're working on as a project. So I guess that's a project by project consideration.
Thank you.
Harriet, I had a question around the multicultural forum, and at 6.2.1. The proposed action is to commence regular Whanganui Multicultural Forum meetings, I would imagine. I thought that was already happening.
Not in a sort of formal organised sense that I'm aware of. So we hold our Welcoming Communities Advisory Group meetings, and the idea and need arose that for more people to be part of some of the discussions that we have, and for it to be more open to the community. So there's definitely a place for the sort of governance of the plan through the advisory group, but we also saw the need for a more open forum to discuss issues and topics that are of interest and relevance to our wider multicultural community. So that's where we're looking at instigating that.
Cool, thank you. No further questions? Josh, I thought you might have had some questions about this. You were quite deep in it. Yeah, good. All right. He just migrated into the comments section, but all good. All right, we'll put the recommendation then that the Strategy and Policy Committee recommends that Council endorses the updated Whanganui Welcoming Plan actions, subject to any minor amendments. And I haven't heard any suggested minor amendments, so that is the recommendation we'll put. Josh, would you like to move that? Happily. Very good. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Charlie. Would anybody like to make a comment on that resolution? Michael.
I just want to clarify my position on this. As a new councillor, I'm unaware of the original, and I'm making my decision based upon what I see, and what I see I agree with, and I'll be voting in favour of endorsing this. I just hope that we haven't changed something without data, but I've been assured by the officer that we have. So, thank you.
Very good. Peter.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The term human resources, the description irks me, human resources, the word, and it depersonalises our people, and resources has a connection of exploitation. I would like to suggest that we change human resources, the title, and well, that would be up for discussion, but as an example, people assets, it You know, that was just an example, and I'm open to any suggestions. It's just, yeah, it just irks me the words human resources. That's all.
Tell me where in the document it is.
It is part of the, like under the wellbeing part in the first column. It's in a number of,
WDC Human Resources. It's the responsibility. That's the name of the...
yeah, it's the name of the department.
It's a pretty industry standard label. I appreciate the connotation as well.
Yeah.
David's just saying to me that it's a pretty industry standard sort of phrase to use.
Yeah, it doesn't mean to say it's a good...
Whilst we appreciate the connotations that it might have for you, perhaps we take it under advisement, because if we were going to make a change like that, Peter, it would have to be council-wide, wouldn't it? Otherwise, yeah.
No,
just add
that's fine.
confusion.
I'm quite happy to have a workshop on it or something similar. Or, you know, I might be the only one that it irks.
Can we have a think about it?
Yeah.
I think your point's well made, but I just don't want us launching into changing the document now when it will be different from everything else at council,
Yeah.
would be my suggestion. Unless the meeting thinks otherwise, happy to make minor amendments and include them in the recommendation. No? Okay, so we'll have it as a thinking point. Thanks, Peter. Would anybody else like to speak to this recommendation? No. Thank you, Harriet. Lovely piece of work. Keep it up. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. We're moving on to item 5.2, page 21. Wendy. Welcome, Wendy.
I was a bit
If you'd like
behind
to
that.
introduce us to Rotokawau, Virginia Lake Aviary item.
Yes.
Thank you.
The report is to inform Council of the findings of a recent review undertaken for the aviary at Rotokawau, Virginia Lake. The findings of the report indicate that when measured against current best practices for codes of welfare zoos and more recently the 5 domains, the aviary does not really meet best practice. And given the significant costs that would be required to remodel or rebuild the aviary, the public are to be consulted with through the annual plan process on the next steps. That's a summary. Any questions?
Thank you. So just to help guide our discussion, this item is about receiving the report. We could take questions perhaps about what the future might look like in relation to the recommendations in the report, but specifically in relation to the annual plan and the consultation process, that is the next item. So I'm not quite sure how we're going to tease them fully apart, but if we could just keep this item as questioning and understanding of what the report's telling us, and then in the context of the annual plan consultation document, that will be the next item. Charles.
Yeah, thanks, Wendy. Just looking at the recommendations on pages 15 and 16, I don't see any recommendation or suggestion of actually closing it. Is that somewhere in the document?
You're referring to the
Aviary.
report.
Yeah, but I don't see anywhere in the report where it suggests one of the options is closing it.
Yes, in the paper, that was the third option. So there was the status quo, upgrade the aviary, and or close. I understand in the consultation document, the preferred option will be put forward as to close.
I think Charlie's point is in the report itself from there's, what are the auxiliary?
At page 15 and 16, you talk about priority recommendations,
Not-
secondary recommendations, but
Wendy, I think the answer is that it's an officer's recommendation that it be closed, is it not? Rather than the gentleman who's written the report.
Yes. It's a management option.
Does that answer your question, Charlie?
it does, but should that not be part of the recommendations as one option to close it? Are we going to receive it?
No.
No?
So I'll just go back to my earlier comments. This is about questioning and understanding the report. The next item about where to from here and how that will look in our annual plan consultation document is the next item of business.
Cool.
Okay, so happy for you to bring it up again, but if we can just contain our discussion to understanding this report, because all we're doing is receiving it. We're not thinking about the future. That's the next item.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie.
Understood, Wendy.
Philippa.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Wendy. I guess my question is probably more of the Chief Executive. I guess my question is we've got a report. It's called a review by a Dr. Roberts, as I would understand. We haven't. So we're receiving this report, but we haven't got the report writer here to speak to it. And why not? And it was raised during the Youth Spaces and Paces. We had the same kind of, I understood this was in this day of Zoom. It seems, a little bit disappointed. Is there some reason we haven't? And I just think for us and the public, who, it gives a fuller insight into the review.
Do you want to answer the question as to why? Because my next question is going to be of Philippa. Are there questions that you would have asked him? So have those ready, Philippa.
Through you, Madam Chair. Look, I think the simple answer to your question is it was a judgment call on my part, and I didn't think it was necessary given the content of the report is relatively straightforward. We also have our own staff capabilities able to answer most questions here. You've got experience in the room directly of running zoos from other councils. So judgment call on my part. If I've got that wrong, I apologise.
Well, there would have been a cost element to it, I would imagine too. So do you have questions that you would have asked of the zoologist if he was here, Philippa?
Well, I mean, I think my answer would be yes, but probably more that, until someone really reading a report's one thing, but getting them to articulate it can raise questions.
Sure.
So this is one of these issues that I think we knew it can seem possibly a little bit, it's not, I'll say minor in the event of an annual plan and a whole lot of figures, but actually pretty major. I've already, and other councils I'm sure have already had messages, emails about this. And for us not to have the report writer speak to us.
So I think your point is well made.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think it's unfair to ask the officer. It's not her report.
Well, David's quite happy to give us an overview and his take on the report. So perhaps we'll pause the questioning and get David to talk to us a little bit about it.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate that.
So, through you, Madam Chair, first of all, I'll just start off by saying that the reviewer was selected specifically because of their expertise in this area. They're the Vice President of the Auckland Zoological Society, and they also run the Unitec course that basically trains most of the zookeepers in the country. So you would struggle to find anybody that is more qualified to do the review for us. For me, I think the report is pretty comprehensive and very clear that the current operations of the aviary are not up to even minimum good practice, never mind best practice. There are some significant issues highlighted in the report, and I'll just skim over a few of them to give you an understanding. So one of the main issues for me is that the aviary itself as a structure is not fit for purpose. It's not big enough for the number of birds that we currently house. It's also not appropriate for the species that are being housed in them. Some of the sub-enclosures are too small for the birds that are living in there. The layout of the aviaries is also less than optimal. The breeding boxes, for example, are placed way too high up and could be concealing birds that have become sick or died, and causing basically health issues for the animals that are enclosed there. The report notes that we list an inventory of birds that includes a number of exotic species. On the day, it was not possible for the reviewer to find all of those species, the implications being that we have had escapes from the aviary, potentially of exotic species that we've released into the wild. So from a bio, the word now.
Bird health.
Yeah, no, from a biosecurity, thank you. From a biosecurity point of view, we potentially have issues there. From a resourcing point of view, the aviary is not staffed in order to meet basic animal welfare standards. Feeding practices are not up to standard because the animals have been fed once in the morning. They're likely glutting on an oversupply of food. There's no dietary records maintained. The food isn't specific to the species that are being fed. Because of the feeding practices, it can't be confirmed that each of the animals are getting adequately fed. And the concern is that some of them are overfeeding at the expense of some of the other animals in the enclosure. There are an absence of enrichment activities provided for the birds, so as a result there are clear behaviours that are symptomatic of animals in distress because of being held in captivity and not being given enough training and entertainment. All of these things can be addressed, and the report makes a number of recommendations on how we could go about doing that. Likely, if the aviary were to remain open, you would have to reduce the stock of birds in there to a smaller number, and then potentially redesign and rebuild some, if not all, of the elements. We haven't yet had an expert in animal enclosure design undertake a review, so at this point we're just signalling that there's a substantial piece of work to be done. In partnership with that, if the aviary was to remain open, we would have to look at bringing in additional resource so that the staff could be there for an extended period during the day to provide better enrichment and animal welfare provisions, and with that would go additional training requirements so that the staff were actually supported to be competent in animal welfare and animal management.
Can you also just remind the meeting about your experience in relation to zoos?
Yes, so through you, Madam Chair, whilst I was the General Manager for Infrastructure and Planning at New Plymouth District Council, I was responsible for the management of the Brooklyn Zoo for a number of years.
All right. Thank you, David. Shall we move on? Rob?
Thank you. The estimate of $500,000, Wendy, I don't know whether that's your estimate or someone else's that's in here, but I would like to some answers about the robustness of that figure, how it's possibly made up.
Yeah, look, through you, Madam Chair, I'll jump in on this one because I gave the direction to our staff. I repeat my comment before, we have not yet had somebody who is a specialist in designing animal enclosures take a look at it. So the figure provided to you is very much an order of magnitude figure to guide your thinking so that you have an understanding of the likely costs. That figure was taken from, I believe, a budgeted figure for New Plymouth's free fright aviary replacement that they have in their long-term plan, as well as benchmarked against a figure for, I believe it was Hamilton Zoo's aviary replacement. So it is hopefully of the right order of magnitude, but it is not a figure that you can pin your...
So it's a replacement of something, it's a renewal, complete renewal.
Yeah, so again, because we haven't gone through the process to understand what specifically we would do, we've given you a figure, and you'll notice when we do get into the next item that the recommendation, if the aviary is to remain open, is to make substantial improvements up to its full replacement. That doesn't mean to say we've predetermined that it will be a full replacement. We just haven't done the work yet to understand where on that scale we'll eventually land. So we're trying to give you the full breadth of the possibilities. Hopefully that makes sense.
Michael.
There's a few questions, Madam Chair. What was the cost of the original report from the doctor?
Does Wendy know?
Through you, Madam Chair, I'd have to look up and get a precise figure, but I believe, including travel, it was of the order of $5,000 or $6,000, but I can give you a precise figure once I look up his invoice.
That's brilliant. And what triggered this report in the first place?
I had been approached by someone who was also a zoologist and had worked at Auckland Zoo, who I met up at the Aviary, and he expressed some concern about the particularly two species of birds and bird enrichment practices. I think that got back to David, and then that triggered a review.
Look, through you, Madam Chair, I'll add my own experience with Brooklyn Zoo was another trigger for the review because I had concerns myself.
As for the structure, and I do agree with Councillor Rob on this, the 500k for structure is complete renewal. However, is it the officer's recommendations for complete structural change? I can clarify because on page 30, section 7 point, he says quite clearly the structure is showing signs of age. It's generally structurally sound and meets the needs of multiple birds. So is it the officers who are saying that we may need to renew completely?
So, through you, Madam Chair, I'll repeat the comment I made before. At this stage, we're giving you kind of the worst case scenario so that you fully understand how the potential for the cost of this, but we haven't yet gone through the next step. If you choose to keep the aviary open, for example, we would get a specialist animal enclosure designer to come in and give us some very specific recommendations on what would be done. We would then determine the cost from there. But for the purpose of this conversation, you now know that you've got a sliding scale from that could go up to the order of $500,000. So we're not predetermining that it will be a full replacement, but up to.
Does the officer understand that this may cause decisions to be made based on requirements that may slide?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, absolutely, and that's why you have the benefit of being able to ask these kind of questions so that you understand the implications before you make your decision.
Right. This one may not be a better answer, but Madam Chair, which is the legal sections from the Welfare Act that we are at risk of, I guess, complicating?
I've only named the general acts. I haven't done the specific sections, but I could find that out.
I've taken too much time. Sorry. Thank you.
I don't think you've taken too much time. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can we presume that the released, due to the fact that operationally we have very limited processes and data points in place, that the released birds may have died many years ago, but we are unaware of it?
We would generally be aware of birds dying because they would be found in the aviary. I would say, in case people are thinking that, going into the aviary and all the birds are in a critical state, that's not actually the case, and we don't have very many deaths at all. And when you have that number of birds, there will be some that die. We are aware that potentially sometimes birds get in somehow, so it's a given that somehow birds get out.
No, and that makes total sense. In your view, so through the Madam Chair, in the Council's view, do we find that the reducing of the operational costs 15 years ago has what's led to cutbacks on processes and operational needs that has led to this report showing welfare problems? So to clarify, 15 years ago we reduced the operational costs down to part-time people, and the 2 staff members were not available at the time of this report to be able to say verbally what they do, and therefore assumptions were made based upon the documentation, and there was none. Do we think that if we had put more money into operationally, then we wouldn't have so many concerns today?
The staffing at the aviary is as it has been certainly for the last 20 years. It's always been run with part-timers and with with part-timers 4 hours a day. That hasn't changed. I'm not aware that
I may be
the
mistaken
costs
then.
have been reduced.
Yeah, I saw the papers in 2015.
There
that we
was some
reduced it.
there was some discussion that might be the case, but the operational, certainly in terms of staffing, has not been reduced.
Happen. Awesome. That's my questions. Thank you.
Ross.
Is it me? Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. I'll go through the chair directly because my questions may come later and I may be out of order at this point. But first question is, whatever sums of money are allocated for whatever options are available in the document, will that become an get my terminology right, that will be part of an unfunded figure?
I think we're in the next item.
Yep, thank you for
That's about
that.
the future. So just if you've got questions there, questions of understanding of the report or
Yep.
questions of the actual report, if you kind of think it from that perspective,
Keep it separate, yeah.
Ross, and then we'll talk about the future in the next item.
Yeah, the other questions I'll save for the other item. Thank you.
Okay. You sure?
Yeah, I'll leave it there because I can see they're more appropriate for, we're talking about receiving the report, not the other aspects. Thank you.
Cool. Charlie.
Yeah, thank you. Now that we've confirmed that we are in breach of the Animal Welfare Act, is it fair that we wait till the end of May before we make a decision, and then probably several more months before anything is done? Can we not fast forward this thing?
Okay, so I'm not actually accepting that we are in breach of the Animal Welfare Act. I think we could be. So I think Charlie's question is about what are the short-term mitigations of making sure the birds are well cared for.
Yeah, good point. We have, in recent months, started to provide more entertainment or enrichment, as it's called. We have had discussions about, there's particularly 1 or 2 small enclosures that don't have a lot of natural light. So we've been looking at options of, say, swapping birds around to different enclosures, and yes, we will look to do that in the short term. There's very little I can do at the moment about the cockatoos, but yes, particularly in the 2 side enclosures, we will probably remove birds from those enclosures.
Thanks, Wendy. So, on the birds you identify who have got, for the want of a better word, mental health issues, once these animals are damaged, can they be a different environment? Will it make them better, make them well again?
I did speak with Lorne about that when we met, and potentially no. I would make the point that some of these birds were given to us and have been pets, and single pets in a cage, if you like, and potentially they had some issues before they arrived. Yeah, but no, there's very little you can do to potentially to change it. You can help with bird enrichment.
Thanks, Wendy.
It's great to hear we're getting ongoing suggestions and assistance from Lorne. So, Philippa.
Yeah, thank you. Possibly a question for David again, and it might have been answered, but I just am struggling to be in a position to make a decision here. So my question is, I mean, if you, that first page 21, and it's got the executive summary, it's got 3 points. So we're looking to receive this report that will flow into the annual plan consultation, if I'm correct, and that's talking about that the options will be to investment to redesign or rebuild the aviary structure, including invest in staffing, etc., or full closure. So while you talked about a range of options, I'm wondering how we can go into just receiving this report, moving to an annual plan, and consulting on just pretty much a total reinvestment or investment to meet all these standards, etc., structurally and operationally, and full closure, when there are all these possible in-between options, without us doing more work. Because
Philippa, I actually think it's the next item.
the annual plan, is that the next item?
It's the consultation document. What we're going to consult on is what I'm hearing you talk about right now.
Sorry.
What are we going to consult on? And I think that's the next item. We can... I want us to receive this report, and then if we kind of need to drift back to questions of the report as we work up where we're going to land in terms of the consultation document, I think that will be fine.
Right.
But let's just corral this for now in terms of receiving this report.
Okay. I understand where Councillor Ross was going. That's cool, as long as we can possibly move back into it. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll allow a bit of drift. All right. Are there any more questions? All right, then I'm going to put the recommendation that the Strategy and Policy Committee receive this report, Rotokawau, Virginia Lake Aviary. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Charlie. Is there any discussion? Michael.
Thank you very much. To me, there is quite a large difference here between receiving the report from a specialist zookeeper and a tourist attraction, Aviary, that has seen up to 60,000 people per year enjoy both tourism and locals. And I've made some comments along the way last night. I'd like to remind our councillors that this is an independent review and it's based on best practice within a zoo. This is not a zoo, this is an aviary. And zoology has a breadth of knowledge, and one of the things I raised during the question time is which section in the Act, of the Welfare Act, are we actually breaking? There's only two elements I can actually find, Section 10 and Section 11, and it's about good practice, not great practice. And when you look at aviaries in different areas, we have good practice. Yes, it's tired. Yes, it needs some revamp. And obviously, operationally, we are not meeting good practice from a council point of view, not from a bird welfare point of view. Have these risks been raised in the past? Where are they on the risk register? Where have there been mitigations from there? How many complaints have we had from public? How many zoo or aviary specialists? How many local aviary specialists? Because I've mentioned there was two given to me last night that haven't done any reviews. I would say the reputational risk of this was actually putting it on this agenda. By raising this and putting it in a way that makes it look like we're breaking welfare for birds is now making it a reputational risk, when actually we do not know if we are, as Madam Chair has said, we do not know if we are breaking the legislation, and it is unlikely, based on Section 10 and Section 11, that we are breaking the legislation. The report does state a new way of measuring health, the 5 domains, which is fairly new. It doesn't appear in the 2018 meta-analysis on Aviary's overview globally. So it's either before then or specifically to New Zealand. That's for the next one. It's classified as structurally sound. Let's keep that in mind. It's classified as structurally sound. In fact, most of the report, if you read the whole report from end to end, and recommendations, it's got 3 minor adjustments recommending, removing numbers, and a whole heap of operational, i.e. the zoo person, who's a specialist working in a zoo, is not happy that the staff didn't turn up, that there's no records, that their processes can't be found, and they weren't there to answer questions on where the water's coming in and not coming in. Now, if you are a specialist and the staff are not there, you can make assumptions, and he said very clearly he's made assumptions due to that, and we know that these assumptions may be okay if the staff were there at the time. There's some really good things in this report. It may break some of the processes. Staff members taking home birds to care for them. How wonderful are our staff who actually look after our animals, who take them home, look after them, care for them, and bring them back. It probably breaks the process, but I was, well done, whoever that was. Water is an assumption. We need to probably do an evaluation on where the water and stormwater is going in. I actually think that's a good point to raise from the report. More purchases are recommended, totally agree. Wheelchair access, that kind of makes sense in today's system. A lot of the post recommendations or secondary recommendations is about customer experience, which is a different element to actually bird welfare. And Madam Chair, I would probably make sure my 5 minutes is cut because I've got a lot here. So there are concerns around caring staff, taking sick birds home, staff not having records, not knowing the numbers of birds, not knowing the feeding patterns. From my knowledge, and I may be completely incorrect, but I did see there was changes made 15 years ago, reducing costs, reducing involvement. We've wanted to get rid of the bird aviary as a council, it seems like, every couple of years, yet the public scream out. I have over 125 different people so far in 12 hours, and over 90% of those want to keep it but don't want to spend $500K. So be warned of that. It's a very emotional point for a lot of people. The report does not show $500K of changes. The report shows minor adjustments and if you want to, a customer engagement strategy around wheelchair access, better visibility, and better things for us humans. It is not about the birds. The birds, we have a couple of minor points, and it says quite clearly that we can make those changes very easily by what you've already done, which is closing those areas. And the only thing I would actually raise is the cockatoo, who's 70 years old, with no place to actually fly it. Yeah, maybe that one should actually be rectified pretty quickly. And the rest of my points are for the next one. Thank you very much.
Philippa.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
I think Councillor Michael's probably talked to, well, the point I want to make here is, and I'm sorry, thank you to staff, thank you for the Chief Executive raising this, thank you for our staff, thank you for the report writer. I think the points of our colleague here probably, although the report writer may never have got out of a Zoom or a meeting if he had to come here, with the excellent level of questioning and commenting by Councillor Michael, but my point is that I will never abstain from a vote, but I will vote against this on the point of we need to at least have the option, whenever we have a report come to council, that the report writer speaks to their report, whether it's in person or by Zoom. So I'm sorry to harbour that point again, but I think it's really important. It happened with the Youth Spaces and Places, it's happened here again. this is a very emotional topic for our community. So I will be voting against this recommendation. Thank you.
Any further speakers? I'll just make a couple of comments. Yes, thank you to the staff. I mean, this issue came up quite recently. It's come to this committee. It's March. The report was February. Thank you for the transparency. It's been suggested that there's a reputational risk around this, but I think the importance of transparency and looking at actually what we've got happening in our community and having it at this table is really important. So thank you for that. Other than that, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? One vote against. Carried. Thank you. We're going to take a 5-minute break before the next item, 5.3. Thank you. welcome, Elise. If you'd like to, thank you. If you'd like to context the next item for us, please.
Kia ora koutou. I'm Elise, the Policy Manager here at Council. I'm here to present the paper Annual Plan 2023-24 Consultation Document and proposed fees and charges. So the purpose of this item is to seek your approval to consult on the Annual Plan consultation and the proposed fees and charges. This item is also your opportunity to discuss the options being presented for the Aviary and to discuss which ones are going out for consultation. So in terms of the annual plan, for context, every 3 years we do a long-term plan, and in the years in between we do an annual plan. We're now at year 3 of our long-term plan. Our annual plan is Council's budget for the year, and it signals key changes to the long-term plan. It's also our opportunity to consult with the community, seek feedback on the proposals and any other matters which the community wish to share with us at this time. I want to note that we do strongly encourage our community's feedback, not just on the issues that we are presenting in the paper, but any issues which the community wish to raise with us. In terms of working through the annual plan, Council does this by calculating the cost to deliver our services and facilities for our residents. And then we figure out how much we need to collect in rates. So an important part of the annual plan process is looking at where we need to adjust our work program in response to the changing circumstances. And as we're all well aware, there have been significant challenges in the last few years, not just locally, but nationally, globally. And those are outlined in the consultation document as well. So in light of the challenges and the cost of living situation, councillors have been through the books and they have made as many deferrals and cuts wherever have been possible. All of these are clearly outlined in the consultation document in the interest of transparency. After these cuts and deferrals have been made, the average rates rise for the coming year is 7.9%, or the equivalent of about $5 a week. It is very important to note that this is an average rates rise and there is a very wide variation this year. The key to this variation is the latest QV re-evaluations, which were completed at 1st of October last year. And I know you had a very thorough presentation and discussion with QV last week, so I won't labour this point. But there has been a fair bit of confusion regarding what valuations mean and how they impact on how much you pay in rates. And rightly so, as the rating system is difficult to digest and understand. In the consultation document, we make the clear distinction between the amount Council collects for its rates, which is influenced by factors such as the cost to deliver them, and how the cost is shared amongst properties, which is partly determined by your property value. So this is the difference between the whole pie in which Council collects and how the pie is apportioned between different properties. As mentioned, there is likely to be a lot of variation in the 7.9% average rates rise because of these property valuations. So we've included some examples in the consultation document so you'll be able to see what the dollar changes are. And these range from people who are going to see a negative amount and they will be paying less through to a $30 per week increase. And that has been driven by the significant increase in land value in Whanganui. The document also mentions the QV objection process, which is closing on 14th of April. I want to note that property downturn is not a reason to object your rating valuation. So I'll close that off there and move on to the key item which we are consulting on in the consultation document, which is the Aviary. We have asked you to consider the options for public consultation in the Aviary, which are currently included in the document. Management has presented 2 viable options for the future of the Aviary for consultation. The first being upgrade the Aviary, including up to a full redesign and replacement, or a full closure of the Aviary. Option 1, we note, will come at an increased cost to ratepayers, and that full cost has not yet been, as David has said, has been costed out. Keeping it open in its current format is not considered viable. And option 2 is preferred due to animal welfare and care and the cost to the ratepayer. I want to note that what you are approving today are the options for consultation. All decisions will be made at deliberations on 30 May. David, do you want to say anything now?
Yes, look, through you, Chair, I just wanted to support Elise here and just maybe talk to some of the comments and questions that were on the previous item. So, as Elise has said, management's view is that the status quo for the Aviary isn't a tenable option. And we want to have a conversation with the community through the consultation document and ask them what is actually, if you boil it down, a relatively simple question. Are we prepared to invest more of our ratepayers' money to improve the operation of the Aviary? And if not, then the alternative is to close it and rehome the birds to other suitable facilities. Now, with that investment option, we have not yet done the work to fully understand what we would do. That is still to come as part of the next steps. So at the moment it is presented as a sliding scale, which could go up as high as full replacement. But I do want to make the point, and it's something that with our comms to our community we need to be clear on. We haven't predetermined that full replacement is the answer yet. And there is absolutely an option for us to look at what are the minimal improvements we need to make to address those core animal welfare issues and get it to a suitable operating standard. But then there are also opportunities, if our community wants to enhance the experience at the Aviary, and as Councillor Law has said, improve the customer experience in that. We want to know what the community's views are on this. You are not making a decision today on what you're going to do. You're making a decision on going and having that conversation with the community, and I think that's an important distinction to bear in mind. Thank you. I'll hand back to you, Lisa.
Thank you, David. So through the chair, back to the consultation document in this paper. So another aspect that we are seeking some early feedback on is around our leading edge strategy, which has been in place since 2014, and things have obviously changed significantly since then. This is our guiding document, so it is a good chance this year to review it. Now, I want to note that we're going to be working through a community engagement conversation this year, so this is just a very, very early opportunity to seek some input from the community around that, as well as some informing of our long-term plan, which we will be kicking off the process this year as well. I also just wanted to note in the document around the decision around curbside recycling, in case that may be lost. So as everyone is aware, we're still working through the procurement process for the curbside recycling service to ensure the best level of service and confirm a start date. The curbside recycling service will no longer be able to start on the 1st of July this year as we had planned, but it will be starting before July next year. And when that happens, it will be funded through central government waste levies and loans for the remainder of next financial year. Therefore, the targeted rate for the service will start on 1st of July 2024. So what this means in more plain language is no rates will be charged in the coming financial year for the curbside service. So the service will still start before 1st of July, but no rates will be charged. In terms of consultation, we're proposing to run this from the 3rd of April to 30 April, and there will be a series of consultation events and opportunities for people to submit either in person, via the website. We'll have hard copy forms as well, and other ways in which people can submit. And as David said, we strongly invite feedback. This is a really important process, and we want to hear from as many people as we can. So we're seeking your support today to adopt the consultation document subject to any amendments. and noting that it still does have some tidy-ups to go, which we will do on the next day. Next item I'd like to speak to is fees and charges, and I will call on the finance team and other officers as needed. We're also consulting on fees and charges, and the changes have been made due to inflation to reflect the actual costs to deliver these services. There are increases proposed to building and resource consent fees, health registration fees, and cemetery fees. And many of these haven't been reviewed for some years, and in light of inflation, this has been the key driver to ensure that they are reflective of their actual cost in the current day. So there are two options presented for the Strategy and Policy Committee to consider, whether we will retain the current existing fees and charges without amendment, or whether you will adopt the proposed fees and charges for consultation. So again, a reminder that this item is to go out for consultation on these, and then pending what the feedback is, your final decision on fees and charges will also be made on 30 May. So that's probably enough from me. Otherwise, I will take the report as read and happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Elise. I'm wondering if we shouldn't break this down into sections, this item, and perhaps take any questions on, for example, proposed fees and charges in the first instance. We could take some questions on the Aviary, perhaps next, on any other matters, and then the actual consultation document. Are we happy if we proceed along those lines? So what do I say? Fees and charges, Aviary. Any other, do you reckon, any other hot items abroad? Well, maybe we start with the broad first, and then we'll hone down to more specific issues. Let's see if that'll work. Josh.
Thank you. Thanks, Elise. You've given elected members a summary previously, but I wonder, for the benefit of the public, if you could just run through the proposed consultation program that will be on offer over this period.
Absolutely. So we'll open our consultation on Monday the 3rd of April. And as always, it will be available on our website. We also have hard copies of the consultation documents available at council as well as at libraries, and if anyone would like a copy posted, sent to them, we're also able to do that. We will be, you'll be able to come and chat to us in person on Tuesday at the Davis Library. We will be there in the middle part of the day. On Friday the 14th of April, we'll be in Castlecliff at the Duncan Pavilion, and that's an afternoon session, so it's after work. So for those who work full-time, encourage you to come out there. We will then be at Hakiki Street Community Centre on Wednesday the 19th of April. And then we will, sorry, I've jumped forward, going back, on Saturday the 15th of April, we'll be at the Extravaganza Fair at Kowhai Park. So also a good option for people who have kids and families and want to be able to come along to that on a Saturday. And finally, we'll be at the Gonville Library on Wednesday the 26th of April. And we are quite open to adding further events, and if we do, we'll post them on our Facebook page. And we do a lot of other promotion. We do newspaper articles, we have obviously Facebook, and our comms team has got a pretty thorough comms plan worked through to promote this.
It's a good summary, thanks.
Rob, was your question of a broad nature?
It's to do with the supporting information. It's a question for Mike.
Go for it.
Is that all right? Mike, in the supporting information, the first document, first page, page 2, it says, has a table there, and I'll just bring it up here, sorry. And it says at the bottom there, rates increased to existing ratepayers, then it has, last year was 3.9, this year was 7.9. Now, next year was 7.9. It's going to be 7.9. We make a lot of the 7.9 through. Now, I've done this in the past. I've compared the total funding requirement of 111,416 last year to the 121,508 this year, and it carries 7.9% underneath it, and that works out at 9.06. And even if you take off the growth, it's still 8.5. Now, there seems, it's got a credibility problem for me.
Question.
So
Judgment can come after the question's been answered.
Can you explain?
Good question.
Yeah, so if you take the rates line at the very top line, rates excluding metered water, trade waste and penalties, if you look at the annual plan figure 22-23 of $67.5 million and the annual plan, proposed annual plan 23-24 $73.4 million, you take the 600,000 growth of that $73.4 million, you come to 7.9% increase. So the 7.9% increase is an increase to existing ratepayers and only relates to the rates line, doesn't relate to the other income, which fluctuates depending on different grants and other stuff that we receive.
Is that the way that it's been done in the past? Because that's a figure that I've always calculated, and
it's always been done this way.
3.9 last year calculated correct.
Yes, it is. So it's always been calculated in exactly the same way.
Okay, it is. So we're going out to the public and we're collecting 121 million, aren't we?
Yes, we are, but for the 7.9% is the increase in rates. And there's the increase of the money we're collecting from our ratepayers, not the money we're collecting from Waka Kotahi subsidies, grant funding from the Sargent Trust for the Sargent Rebuild, all of those other income lines that we have.
So just for clarity, the amount that we're rating for is how much?
Excluding metered water and trade waste, it's $73.497 million GST exclusive.
Thank you. Jeannie?
Thank you very much. Mine's an Aviary question. It's about the wording in the document, so I can wait.
Yeah, thank you. We'll take the Aviary all in one parcel.
I'm not sure there's any other questioners, but... Sorry. Can't see any other questioners, but...
So, any question? So that's the broad questions. Fees and charges. Have we got any questions of fees and charges? No questions on fees and charges?
Yes, hello.
Yes? Sorry, Charlotte.
In this report, there's no suggestion of what the fees and charges have been or what they're changing to. Is that going to be in the consultation document, or when are we going to understand that?
So that is it's a separate consultation. We have to run it separately, and it has its own statement of proposal, which sets out all of that information in it. And Claire and Mike can talk to that if there are questions.
Okay. So I guess what we will be voting on is whether to consult on it, and we will receive the information at a later date.
You've received the statement of proposal on the proposed fees and charges.
Yeah.
Sorry, a bit of a mouthful. What you are deciding today is whether to consult on those proposed changes, not whether or not to change them. If you want a quick overview, probably Mike can give
would be great.
A quick overview of the proposed changes.
It was one of the late items.
Yeah. Thank you, appreciate it.
Are you happy? So as was said earlier, we have reviewed our fees and charges, and they don't reflect the current cost of delivering service. So we have in the proposal, we have what the current fee is and what we're proposing it to go to. So that information will go out to the public, and then they'll be able to provide feedback through to us. We're asking you today to agree to go out to the public with that fee schedule listing the new fees and charges.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the rationale for setting the new fees and charges, Mike?
What we do, we look at the cost of providing that service. So fees and charges where there's a private benefit to an individual and not the community as a whole, then the rationale means that the individual receiving that benefit should pay for that benefit as opposed to being subsidised by the ratepayer.
Thank you. Any more fees and charges questions? No? All right then, we'll move on to questions about the Aviary. I just want to foreshadow that with the Aviary consultation option, for me, the question is how do we get the best process, the best consultation process for our community? How do we best hear? And do we best hear by putting a somewhat couple of polar options, when it seems to me now that we've had the opportunity to read the report that there is more, as David says, a sliding scale in terms of what might be the options before us. So to that end, and further to the discussion we had at the earlier item, I'm foreshadowing that I think we can do a better job in terms of our consultation question.
Just point of clarification, please.
Yes. Mike, please.
Considering that this is a public consultation process, would it not be inappropriate for any member to express a position on this one way or the other at this time?
You're referring to what I'm saying?
I'm saying that given the previous item, and now we're discussing this and it's a public consultation, it seems inappropriate to me for members to express at some stage of this debate their preference for any of these options. And I'm seeking your ruling on it.
Yeah, well, I'll give you my take on that. Number one, I was very careful with my language. I'm saying I'm wondering if we should be considering this. Number one. Number two, anybody who sits around this table must always keep an open mind in terms of where we might land on a particular decision. So whilst I'm putting it to you that we should consider where we land on this consultation option, firstly, I'm only putting it to you as a suggestion, and secondly, I'm very well aware, and I'd invite everybody else to be really well aware, that whatever we think about the consultation document and the options therein, we must keep an open mind until we have heard from members of our community. So I think good point to raise, Rob, but just as a reminder to us all, we need to keep an open mind. We must not be predetermined in terms of any decision that might be made at the end of May, is it? That's when we have determinations.
30 May. I do want to note you do need to signal by vote, probably, your preferred option.
Yes. So, I've been working on a suggested option, and just wondering, ladies, so the recommendation would be that A would be that we amend the options for the public consultation on the Aviary to include an option for investment to address critical animal welfare options only. That's what we've crafted up so far, but I'm just wondering if it doesn't quite, for me, and look, I'm just flying a kite with you, it doesn't quite capture the option of investment to address critical animal welfare options and development of the aviary. It's just the sliding scale aspect of this decision. Yeah, for me, as I said, I think if we offer up polar opposites, I'm not sure that we'll have the best consultation process.
Madam Chair, I do have 3 options here preordained, ready for the discussion. I can bring them to you now if you want.
Yes? Always open to yellow sticky notes.
To give it to help with the spectrum.
That says critical only, it's too limited. Too limited, critical means what's, there's no due by date. I'm trying to find out what's critical and get it done. It's too vague.
I'm open for debate on the wording, just operationally and value.
Just let us, just for members of the community, we are, and Elise, you might like to speak to this, we are very bound by, we have to go out with an option. So that's why it's very important that we get the right option.
What might be given there are the options to go into the consultation document. Yeah. What we need is a recommendation that allows officers to write those into it. So they're becoming.
What about this one? So what Michael, what Michael's put here is the suggested options. That option 1 is bring the aviary up to welfare standards, which is what we've got up there essentially. We've got option 2, upgrade the aviary to maximise use while ensuring welfare standards, and option 3, full closure of the aviary. And it's, I think that's quite a good synthesis of what, and then just whether it's option 1, 2 or 3 is what we put up as the preferred option. So that captures the sliding scale aspect of it, Michael. Thank you.
We need a resolution really just to amend the options that allows us to split the sliding scale into a lower investment option and a higher investment option. Then that gives officers the flexibility to capture this kind of detail in the consultation document. So
the other bit to this is that we need to come up with a preferred option for consultation, don't we?
yes, I would do that after you've decided what, if you're going to amend the options, get that done first, then decide on the preferred option.
Okay.
It would be a long resolution, but I'm happy.
Yep.
I'm happy for him to put the motion that says amends the options to option 2, option 3.
Can we integrate that into what you've got up there? You can probably get rid of most of it. So thank you for that, Michael, and thank you for your patience, committee. Do we have any other, we can come back to that, but do we have any other questions around the aviary? Jenny, you do?
Much of my questioning's been dealt with in that, now that we are allowing our community to have better options to choose from as opposed to polarising options. So I'm right down to a simple word change. With regards to option 1, I'm looking at this through the eyes of a member of our community reading it as opposed to us, and it says here would cost upwards of $500,000, and that could be interpreted as starting at $500,000 and going up. So upwards to $500,000 just might be a better way. It sort of puts a ceiling on it. That's all for the moment.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions about the aviary?
Well, it's a point of clarification, actually. So if I'm hearing this correctly, we need to, whether we have 1, 2 or 3 and they're amended, we need to come up with one option that's going to go out for consultation. Is that right?
No, we're going out with 3 options,
Going out with
but
3.
we have to choose one as the preferred option at this point,
Right. Okay.
which is not to be confused with that's what we're necessarily going to do. But at this point, we have a preferred option.
Okay. So,
Yep. Just, I'll let David chip in too.
Through you, Madam Chair, and just a really important point to note that the current preferred option that's been put into the draft is the closure option. Now, you are able to change that if you want to. However, you do need to be aware that that will then need to be reflected in a revised budget, because we'll have to put the operating costs for the Aviary back in. And that will then obviously have an impact on the 7.9%. All of those things are fine. You just need to be aware of that little bit of detail before you start potentially thinking about moving a motion to change the preferred option, because the budget has to reflect what you put in the consultation document as the preferred.
right. So may I just continue? I can see option 1 on page 42 says, and that might be amended, upgrade the Aviary including up to a full redesign and replacement, and it may have what Councillor Duncan's referring to. But in item 25, it says making small changes to the current facility would not be sufficient either for the same reasons. So we have a statement in 25 that says small changes are not recommended, but in option 1, there is officially in option 1, despite that statement, we could make small changes even though there's reasons against it. They're still sitting there. Is that correct?
I think so.
So, through you, Madam Chair, I'll try and clarify the officer's thought process when we put this together. On reading the experts, the zoological report, officers were of the view that whatever we did was going to require something significant in terms of budget. This was not a $5,000 fix. It could be all the way up to full replacement, but it wasn't going to be insubstantial. It certainly wasn't something that I could just absorb from an existing budget under delegation that you've already given to me. The point of difference that I think Councillor Law has raised, which is quite a valid one, is in amongst all of that, there are improvements that we need to make operationally to give better welfare standards to the animals. There are then also visitor experience improvements, which are very much discretionary. And he's making the distinction between the core improvements, which I think will still come to a reasonably substantial sum of money once we've done the work to understand them. But that is the minimum that we must do versus the discretionary enhancements that you could do over and above. I'm happy to support, from a management point of view, the motion that's being proposed, because it is a valid question to ask our community. Do you want to just do the absolute minimum to meet animal welfare standards, or are you prepared to invest more and get a better experience and improve the level of service from a customer experience point of view? And I think that is a nuanced detail that officers maybe overlooked when we put together the report, but also, without making excuses, reflective of the fact that we're very early on in the process and we haven't done the work to understand and lock in a scope for whatever the improvements are. That would be part of the next steps.
Peter?
Yes, thank you. Since we're now discussing the sliding scale, can I suggest that the top end is $500,000, but what is the bottom end of closing it? Which how much does that cost? Because if that costs $450,000 to close it, then we're only talking about 50 grand. So if we could incorporate that somewhere.
Well, there will be some aspect of ongoing operational costs, regardless, surely.
Yes.
What is the cost of close that?
So, through you, Madam Chair, the cost of closing it, so removing the structure and well, anything to do with the disestablishment has been factored into the budget, so you don't realise the full operating cost as a saving because of those things, but it's already included in the budget.
Philippa?
Yep, sorry, I'm still a bit confused, because we're looking to have, make a decision on an option. But, David, when you commented on that option, we have to factor in, for example, if we went to option 2 there, the second middle one, then it's really saying that we're going to, there's a cost to keeping the Aviary open. My understanding at the moment, we're talking 50k, but then so into our annual plan, you're talking about the figures need to be changed. I'm just really confused. What kind of cost are you talking about? Obviously, there's work to be done on all these options and costs, and and they're all nothing's clear apart from what our current operating costs are.
So
and there will be a time period of if we make any decision when that might happen. Can you?
So maybe if I kind of put it in plain English, what we're doing, sorry, I didn't mean that. Try and simplify this by speaking plainly. What we're trying to do is ask the question of our community. Do you want to close the Aviary? Do you want to invest a little bit to meet minimum standards, or are you prepared to invest more to enhance the Aviary? And in simple terms, that is the question we want the community's feedback on. How much each of those things will cost? We need to give the community a bit of a steer. Are we talking 10,000, 100,000, millions of dollars, so that they're conscious of the potential implications, but you're not yet making a decision on which of those options we want to go for. Just simply, how do we want to ask the community this question?
Okay,
So
but in regard
just
to
Philippa, I'll stop you there because I'm going to switch over to Mike here. I'm just going to, can you outline and remind, because we have already covered some of this, remind councillors of the financial impacts of A, B and C and how that would be captured in terms of the consultation document?
Yep, so option C, full closure, don't spoken about that, that's included in the 7.9%. If we go for option A, which is to address the critical animal welfare standards, you'll have some capital investment, but I would think that the larger cost will be the operating costs of additional staff resources. So if you're, as been indicated, you need to give a preferred option. If your preferred option, you're going to come in and say, here's 3 options. Our preferred option right now is to just do address the critical animal welfare standards. We will need to put some operating costs into the budget. 150,000, something along that, 200,000, something along those lines, which will push the rates increase from 7.9 up to perhaps 8.3, 8.2, somewhere around that number. If you decide that your preferred option is the B, maximising the experience as well as addressing the welfare standards, we'd need to put those operating costs still in there, that 150, 200,000, plus some loan funding for some capital renewal, and that may be $300,000-400,000. With the impact, probably minimal impact on the loan funding for interest and some loan repayments. That will probably take you around about the 8.4, 8.5 mark, somewhere around that number.
Thank you, Mike.
Can I ask a follow-up question on that? Thank you. Thanks, Mike. So for me, looking at these options, well, it's not really a question, actually. It's more, I guess it is. Can we include in all 3 of the options what the costs are explicitly? I know that you've said that the cost of the preferred option as it stands at the moment is included in the 7.9, but if we're asking the community to provide feedback, my personal view is that they need to have those actual costs as much as is known right in front of them, just as it is with the $500,000.
Yeah, I think Mr. Langford sort of answered that, alluded to that, sorry, before. So with the other 2 options, outside full closure, we would give an indication of what they are. Obviously for B, That's up to the 500,000, some operation, some capex, and we can break some of that down. For option A, it would be, as I've mentioned, the operating cost. So we could put a rough order of magnitude of that.
Okay.
Then surely there's some structural stuff as well.
Yes, yes.
Some capital costs.
There would be minimum. Yes, there would be minimal capital costs, and we could put a rough order of magnitude there. And obviously for option B, those capital costs go up to the number we've got in there.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Do you want to add anything?
Just, I suppose, I wanted two things. A note of caution about being overly precise with the figures that we give our community, given the very, very early stage. We want to indicate an order of magnitude rather than accidentally mislead that it's going to be a number. The other point I would make, and as Mike has pointed out, and we should maybe have covered this earlier in the discussion and the questioning, the dominating factor in the rates increase is going to be the operating cost. Whether it's option A or option B, there is additional investment required in increasing the staffing resource at the facility, and that by and large, because it is OPEX, has a much bigger impact on your rates. If we use our usual rule of thumb of about $5 million being 1% in rates when it comes to debt-funded capital, up to full replacement at $500,000 would add 0.1 to your rates. If you only spent 250,000, then 0.05. So relatively modest impact on the rates compared to the operating cost, which you're going to incur whether you go option A or B. I think that was probably also part of the officers' thinking when we were putting that sliding scale together, because the capital investment in the grand scheme of things is a relatively modest component and a relatively modest impact on rates. But I also appreciate in a high cost of living crisis, that 0.05 may actually be quite important to people.
So can we do a plain English version of that in the options? And what I'm talking about here is that in option 1, we say this is not our preferred option because of the cost to the ratepayer. I'm cautious that members of the community will want to understand what the immediate implications are in this financial year. So can we say this would push our rates increase up beyond the 7.9%? Because that's the actual implication, as opposed to there is an additional cost.
So, through you, Madam Chair, if you move this motion successfully and alter the options, then we would go through and edit the consultation document, and in as plain English as possible, just spell out the cost implications, but also without being overly precise, given the stage in the process that we're at.
I'll reword I'll paraphrase that slightly, just to, so we need to come up with a preferred option of A, B and C up there. So if we come up with option A, it will change the projected rate increase from 7.9. Right?
That's good.
Josh, do you have any
no,
further
that's all.
questions? Michael, then Ross. Yay.
There's me.
Go, Ross.
Am I on? You on? Oh, okay. I really want to get this, because I'm stuck between animal welfare, and that really distresses me. And then we get into the rates. It's an awkward subject. So my comment through the chair, perhaps to David or Mike, is that in hearing what David has said and Josh has said and Mike has said, whether it's A, B or C, potentially if you include the rating impact, the public's very aware that, and I put in quote marks, that we were pleased to get it down to 7.9, and the public's aware of that. Potentially A, B or C, preferred option, whatever's stated there, could tip it to that number 8.
A and B would tip it by 8.
But not C?
No. C's been factored into the budget already.
C.
Okay, so potentially for confirmation, A or B will tip us over 8%?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so Thank you. The other thing I'm going to suggest to you, and just see what the appetite is, if the feel of the meeting is that those are the options that you'd like us to vote on, I'm going to suggest to you that A would be the preferred option that is included in the consultation document. We can take this on a vote, on a stage-by-stage vote if you like, but that would be my preference, to put that up as the first. It might be second, because we might need to vote down the officer's recommendation. No, we won't need to. Okay. Yeah.
Point of clarification. The word in option A that you're referring to says critical. Who has the expertise to define what is critical from that list of concerns? How is that defined in order to take those through? What is the cut-off point?
I suggest we take critical out of there. Josh?
Thank you. Process-related question. If we approve A, and we need to factor in the additional cost associated with that, are we still able to approve the consultation document today, given that we'll be going out with an entirely new rates increase?
A yes or no will do.
Yes, subject to amendments.
Perfect.
So subject to any amendments that you suggest today, we will go and make those, and then we can do another circulation of the document prior to Monday, so we do have some time.
Okay.
Rob?
Thanks.
Yeah, look, I've still got a problem here with Mike's explanation, because we're just talking about this 7.9%. Now, Mike, you said that this line here, 67,564 was the rates we collected last year. This year we're collecting 73,497. That's 8.78% already. So I just can't get my head around this explanation.
Look, I did the calculations this morning, Rob. If you take the 73.497 million, if you take 600,000 off that, and then you compare that to the 67.564%, that is 7.9%.
So that's
so you've
with
got
the
to
600,000
take
off.
600,000 off
Okay.
growth off that 73.4
thank you.
million.
Okay, just before we move to the recommendation, were there any questions around, other than what we've just been talking about, the actual consultation document?
I have.
Charlie?
If we change these resolutions as you're suggesting, and A comes through as being the preferred one, aren't we predetermining it? Aren't we?
What you're doing is, sorry, through the chair, you're going out to the public saying this is our preferred option right now, but you won't make final decision until you've heard back from the community.
But it's better coming from you officers rather than from us.
No,
surely.
this is a consultation document from the elected members, not from staff.
So we have given you our management recommendations, and you have chosen to change those, which is absolutely fine, and because it's your document. We do need, under the Local Government Act, we do need to signal what the council's preferred option is, and then what the impact of that preferred option will be. So we need to go away and put the dollar figures in a rough estimate as suggested. Then once you come back to deliberations, that's when you will need to come to that with an open mind and decide on which of those options you will take forward for the future of the Aviary.
Charlie, with any process like this, it is always officers' recommendation that comes to this table, to every council table, and when we pick it up and run with it or we change it, it becomes our recommendation. So this is no different than any other time. Trust me. Peter?
So it becomes now council's preferred option over above the officer's preferred?
Yes.
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 Okay.
Good analysis.
Through the chair, there will be a vote on the preferred option. Is that what's coming up next?
Yes.
Perfect.
Oh, I don't think we'd have got out of the room. All right, I asked if there was any questions about the document in itself. Nobody's got any questions?
I just want to, apart from this, so when have I got an opportunity to ask questions? Well, it probably is now, if that's...
It will, because I'm
around
about
this.
to put some recommendations up.
Okay. So I want to ask a question about the Sergeant Gallery. What I want to ask that is, if you just give me a little bit of levity here, Chair. I think while in our workshops we've had discussions and questions and answers, and there was a premise that we were trying. I think the Mayor was fairly keen to get our workshops into the open forum, not closed. But
Stick with the subject
that
matter,
didn't
Philippa.
happen.
The Sergeant is your question.
So the Sergeant's a question, and I think probably the easiest place to look is on page 14 of the consultation document. So the question that I'm getting out there is, why are we only having specific consultation on the Aviary, but not having specific consultation on the Sergeant Gallery, when it's a significant variance to the $4 to $5 million we've consistently said will be the ratepayer input? And as you can see in that nice bar graph, it's the second biggest factor in our 7.9 rates increase.
I can start to answer that question, and David will possibly have some comments on top of that. So with the Sergeant on page 7, we've been quite open about the increase in cost there. We've labelled what the increase of capital cost is. So with the Sergeant, we are not changing the level of service that we have agreed on through the long-term plan and other annual plans. We're still going for the level of service, which will be the new build there. Is coming at an increased cost due to the cost of construction. We are tied into this cost because we have contracts, we're contracted to complete this project. There is no question to ask the public. The reality is that if we stop the build, we'd be up to multi-million dollars of breach of contracts and all that sort of stuff, and would have a shell of a building there which cannot be used. That's not a tenable option to ask the public. So what we're doing, we're informing the public of the increased cost of the service that we have agreed to. So we are tied into this, and to halt it now would be massive financial cost. Does that answer the question?
So,
Yes.
the nub of the issue is we need to consult and should consult on when there's a change in service, not so much a change in cost to a service we provide.
You would go out to the public if there's a significant increase in cost and there are viable options open to the public. So if you haven't started a service and you're about to do it, but you realise through the tendering process or something like that there's a massive cost increase, you could go back out to the public and say, do you still want to go on with this? Because there are legitimate options that the public can come back to you with. But in this case, there are no options, there are no questions to ask, but we are informing the public, and that's what we really have to do through this.
Right.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's really important for the public to, well, it's not a debate. There might be more said in any kind of debate forward around the annual plan, but it was really important, this question,
Yes.
to be answered, because that's the question I'm getting.
All right.
Thank you.
Good work, Philippa. If I had a chocolate bar handy, you'd get the chocolate bar for the day. All right. Are there any more questions? Because I'd like to get us to a point where we've finished on time so Ross can get to his next appointment at 1:15. That is my recommendation to you, that the Strategy and Policy Committee amends the options for public consultation on the Aviary to include the following options. One being investment to address that council, investment to address animal welfare standards only, and that's the preferred option. Two, that the investment to maximise use of the aviary while addressing animal welfare standards. and that 3, full closure of the Aviary. So that is the first part of the recommendation. Do you want to do this one by one, or can we put the suite of recommendations? Perhaps we'll take that one first. Pardon? Yes, and then if it fails, then someone else can try something else. So that is my recommendation. Do I have a seconder for that recommendation? Thank you, Glenda. Is there any discussion? Rob?
Thank you. Without predetermining the way that I would see this at the end of May, I think that it is wise for this council to have a preferred option of full closure of the Aviary. Because that will, first of all, it will stimulate the public discussion, and we've already witnessed that. It is also what is in the document now, and anybody that speaks or puts in a submission in support of 1 or 2 would know the increase in costs that will occur. So it seems to me that this is a good process to go out for a public consultation. Thank you.
Sorry, I just didn't quite, did I heard Councillor Vincent say that he thought the preferred option should be full closure, but he was speaking to that our preferred option is 1.
The recommendation is, that's before you to vote on, is whether 1 would be the preferred option. I guess. So Rob, you've just spoken, what I interpret is you've spoken against the motion?
I've spoken against it.
Yep. Because you think it should be full closure?
Yes.
Yep.
Just a clarification, just for process, shouldn't we be agreeing what the 3 could be and then agreeing what our preferred one is?
We could do. If this fails, that might be the next step. I was just trying to get us to the end point a little more speedily.
Efficiently.
Thank you. If you've got comments on my chairship, you might like to make them later. Philippa?
Yeah, okay. I will just briefly speak to this. I mean, this is a tough one because, like many of you, we've kind of come to a draft annual plan where we're talking about an average 7.9% increase, and supporting this recommendation would mean we know that's going to lift a little bit above the 8%. Exactly what, we're not sure. I think Councillor Vincent's point is going out with closure, kind of puts big alerts out there to the community, and they really come back and tell us. But I'm going to support this because I think this is actually what the community wants us to work towards, investment. Whether that's us, whether that's some part sponsorship, part community, that's what I would like us to keep all this mind open to. In fact, so that we still try and keep our average rates about what they are, very close to what they are. But I do think that this gives some sense of that already, early days, the council is listening, and that the council understand, this is a very emotional, it's also, a tourist attraction, a whole lot of stuff. So I will kind of reluctantly support a resolution that may mean some more rates increase, if this was to be what happens to go through in the end, with support from the community. But I'd like to keep this full idea of options there. Thank you.
Thanks, Philippa. Charlotte?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Charlie?
Yeah, sometimes known as Charlie. I absolutely support all of these options being up there. It's not very often that I completely agree with my colleague across from me, but in this case, I certainly do. I think that having our preferred option as closure will invigorate some pretty robust discussion, and I think that that is a good goal to have with a consultation process, and I think it will also give quite a stark clarity of the investment required and the impact that that will have on our rates. With that way. Doesn't necessarily mean that I agree with that preferred option, but I think that it will be more robust discussion in the consultation.
Thank you. I want to start first of all by acknowledging my colleague Councillor Michael for some excellent questioning earlier in the meeting, and also for beginning the discussion online. And I think if the response that some of us have had overnight and this morning is anything to go by, then regardless of what option we put up here, the discussion will certainly be stimulated throughout the community based on putting these options out to the public for feedback. I think it's important, first of all, I support the preferred option as written up there on the board. And I think it's important not to lose sight of the fact that while the discussion around this table has been confined to the animal welfare standards and perhaps the broader user experience, what we're also talking about here is one of our premier parks, a premier park that is hugely popular both with families, broader members of the community, and also people from out of town. And for me, I will always support investment to enhance rather than diminish our premier parks. And my view at this time, also not predetermining anything here, is that a full closure of the Aviary would be a diminishment. And I think it's important that that features as part of this discussion. Really happy with the options in the sense that I do think they paint a much clearer picture of the full spectrum of options available to us than what we began this meeting with, and I want to thank the officers for accommodating that in this final recommendation, and you too, Madam Chair. So thank you.
Thank you. Charlie?
Thank you. I'm opposed to this. I'm opposed to all forms of zoos. You go to Wellington, they've got a concrete block swimming pool with a polar bear wandering around shaking his head. And this Aviary is no different in my view, and whatever we decide, whether it's a premier park or not, it's to do with what's right for the animals, and I don't believe that this is right for the animals, and they should be set free. They can't be set free, of course they won't survive in the wild, but if someone else can take them and home them, that's their problem, but I don't think we should be part of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Peter?
I would just like to thank the staff for the report, and I see no reason to change the preferred option. They've done all the hard work, and they have, I'm sure, considered all the factors, so I see no reason to change the preferred option.
Thank you, Peter. Ross?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to support option 3, full closure. And my reason for that is these creatures are in distress, some are suffering, and if the public want this facility, they need to fight for it. And if they fight for it, it comes at a cost. It comes at a cost, it goes on their rates, they own it. That's what the community wants, then they need to be happy with that increase as opposed to councillors making that decision for them. I was brought up in Wellington. I went to the zoo and I saw all these creatures in cages. It was very upsetting, very upsetting. And I had a friend of mine say to me last weekend, she's going to take her children to the Aviary. I had to bite my lip because that lovely mum with her 3 gorgeous children, those children are not going to know those animals are suffering. Those creatures are suffering. They're just going to say, look, mummy, it's lovely. Yet I know they're in distress. And I would say to parents, when you've got children taking them through the Aviary, if you're aware they're in distress, take ownership and do something about it. So I'll be supporting Councillor Vinson.
Thank you. Michael?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess, first of all, I'll split into two points. First, the amendment to 3 options. I think this is a positive question, thank you, Madam Chair, to invigorate conversations around operational excellence versus customer value, maximisation. It really does allow people to stretch their wings and say, do I really want to maximise use, wheelchair use, viewing screens, I don't know, an AI bot that tells you what the birds are. There's lots of things you can do, right? Whereas operational excellence is about welfare standards and having a fair and equitable viewing point for tourists and locals. And of course, full closure if you really don't want it, for multiple reasons. I respect the views of Councillor Ross and Councillor Charlie around zoos entirely. So I support the three options. As for the preferred option, I have to go with democracy, and I've already got well over 160 responses so far. So my preferred option will be option 1.
Thank you. I think we've got to a good place where, in terms of the decision that we're facing, it's been quite a difficult process from a meeting perspective. So thank you for your support in helping us get to this place. I think the staff have done a really good job in terms of putting this to us, and I guess one of the, how this has felt a bit awkward in terms of getting to something we could vote on has been in part due to the speed with which this has come to this committee. So yeah, thank you to the team, and thank you for your generosity in allowing us to craft the recommendation that we've got in front of us. So with no further ado, I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Have we counted? 5. The motion is carried. Thank you. We're moving now to the rest of the recommendations.
Can you just confirm that the annual plan documents that we are now going to pass or otherwise, it's still proper procedure to go ahead with that, because they're all going to be altered?
So what the recommendation B has in front of us is subject to any amendments, that we adopt the annual plan consultation document and supporting information for consultation subject to any amendments. So, and we've had assurances from the team that the consultation document can be amended in line with any of the options that we voted on in, what was it, A, in 5.3A. Does that answer your question,
Yep.
Rob? Yeah. So we're going to put B, that we adopt the annual plan consultation document 23-24 and supporting information for consultation subject to any amendments. C, adopts the statement of proposal on proposed fees and charges 23-24 for consultation subject to any amendments. Holds public consultation on the annual plan 23-24 and on fees and charges 23-24 from 3rd of April until the 30th of April 2023 inclusive, and that E, we delegate the authority to the Chief Executive, Chief Financial Officer to make any editorial changes to the consultation document or statement of proposal before being released for consultation. And it's not part of the recommendation, but I will remind you that our team said that we would have a copy of it by the end of the week, I think, is what I heard. Was that all right? Did I hear that correctly, Elise? Yeah. Thank you. So I'm putting those recommendations. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Peter. Any discussion? Rob.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say I will vote in favour of this, so there's no option. But it's extremely disappointing that we've gone through this whole process where we had a consensus, a strong consensus around this room, that something with a 7 in front of it was pretty acceptable. And when you put that out to the public, and we went out to the Kororos, and when you said that it was something with a 7 in front of it, whether it was at the end of the 7 range or the start, there was a general acceptance that this council had done a pretty good job because that is approximately the rate of inflation. And most people are pretty sympathetic with the way we set our rates and supportive of us when we go out and say, well, it's pretty comparable to the rate of inflation. And the decision that we've just made, unfortunately, takes it quite a way past it. And I think that is particularly disappointing that we have come to this conclusion after all this work. Yes, the public are going to, when we go out to the public, they're going to have their say, and they're not going to be very happy about their 8.48% increase or whatever it's going to be. But unfortunately, the process, by having this come to this stage at this meeting, and not having this previously at the workshops when we were talking about the rate of increase and how it was so important to us, by doing it now, we've been forced into it. Thank you.
Thank you. Josh.
Thank you. I just want to take a moment to acknowledge the staff for the thoroughness of the workshop process that we've gone through, but particularly to acknowledge just how well laid out the consultation document is. I mean, I know we're putting out an option and we're seeking feedback, but I think this is a really good educational document as well, particularly around framing up just how much impact council services have on the day-to-day life of the residents that live in our community. So just want to acknowledge Elise and the comms team and so on for putting that together. It's really quite impressive, and really happy with it. The other point I want to highlight is that we've achieved a rates increase here that is largely in line with inflation, and although I do acknowledge Councillor Rob's comments, but also want to highlight that the consultation document talks about a number of cuts and deferrals that we've agreed to achieve a lower rates increase than initially we thought we might. And the bulk of those cuts and deferrals have been in the community wellbeing / placemaking space. And I'm very conscious of the fact that often it's these sorts of initiatives, things like the Youth Hub, things like Town Centre Regeneration, things like the Heritage Grant Funds, that often wind up as almost the easy thing to slash when we get into these tough decision-making periods. And I would hate to think that come the long-term plan next year, that these cuts or deferrals remain in place, because while there may be a financial impact, the long-term impact and the diminishment of community wellbeing that will incur if these cuts and deferrals remain in place, in my view, is far greater. And so I would like to see this council pay very close attention to reintroducing some of those initiatives as we get further down the track. Thank you.
Thanks, Josh. Philippa?
Yes, thank you. Pretty much in line with my colleagues. I mean, I share and hear Councillor Vincent's concerns, and I think we all do. However, I have supported that option 1 in regard to the, in regard to, at this stage is preferred in regard to the Aviary, and also endorse and support largely Councillor Josh's comments in regard to what we've, what all the really hard mahis that's been done by our council team and us, and some of the deferrals or the funding we've had to reduce in this annual plan, or stop in fact. And I'm sure he meant to mention like sport and recreation, because there's a level of that's had some the contracts being completely cut there, although wasn't completely utilised. I think what we do know is with working parties and councillors' strong interests and everything else, that doesn't stop us and our team still doing a lot of work in those areas, and we have strategies and we have a whole lot of other things that we need to meet through the council process. All I just want to say, I mean, I kind of will reluctantly actually adopt this annual plan for consultation, because consultation is really important, and keeping an open mind. Obviously, particularly interested in Aviary. I would, I was going to say, I'll leave possibly saying a bit more at the moment, but I would like that resolution 3 around subject to amendments, I will leave it for council staff, but I would like them to consider, in regard to the Sergeant Gallery, putting some further, I know we don't want the size of the documents, but some further explanation in regards to the answer that we got from our Chief Financial Officer of why that project is not being separately consulted on, and obviously in regard to the effects, which could be financial and legal, I guess, if that project was to be delayed or stopped. We have a community that can't say no to their mortgage increases and things like that. So they really will struggle with some of this. And obviously the Sergeant is that second biggest budget line in this rates increase. But I will leave it up to council officers, but I think that would be really important in our communication on such a significant project. I'll be otherwise supporting these resolutions. Thank you.
Thanks, Philippa. Ross?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to echo what my fellow councillor is stating, that staff do consider a possible statement, because having the mind that I have, we're putting out the Aviary for consultation to the public to give input on, yet they don't understand why they don't have input on the potential gap that might come to us to support. And I think when people make that connection, they're going to be a little bit grumpy. And so I think it's important that they do understand in some short, tight sentence or two why this has come about and why they can't particularly, I don't want to say can't, but where they don't have the opportunity to be involved in the consultation in that gap. So I just want to echo that suggestion as an amendment, potentially.
Thank you, Ross. It is my expectation that it will get picked up, I'm sure, in relation to the Sergeant. So thank you for that. I'll just add my thanks to the team, the whole workshop, building the annual plan, the consultation document. It's a long and it's a big process. I just hope you get to draw a breath before we get into the submission process, the determinations, and then we launch into the long-term plan and the review of the leading edge strategy. So it's always important to just acknowledge at a point in time our successes, and I consider this document to be a success in terms of how well worked it is, and also how nimble it's been, just in terms of the Aviary issue. Without further ado, we'll put the recommendations B through E. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. We'll move on to item 5.4, the Government Consultation Update. Thank you, Elise.
Thank you. Hopefully this will be a relatively short item. The purpose of this report is to update you on consultations undertaken by central government and any other organisations which have the potential to impact on council and the wider Whanganui district, and to give you forward planning in terms of what is happening and note the submissions that we have completed. So since the last update last month, we have completed the submission on the Future for Local Government review, and that is attached in the paper. And we have our eye on 3 consultations which are upcoming, but we don't have dates for these yet. In terms of the Future for Local Government review, we've provided an overview in the paper as well of what our submission included, and that submission was circulated around from elected members, and I received quite a bit of feedback and input which has been incorporated. So I thank you to everyone for your support for that submission and your input. I think that's probably all I need to say on this paper. Otherwise, I will take it as read and happy to take any further questions.
Any questions for Elise? Thank you, Jenny. Would someone like to second it? Thank you, Charlie. I'd just like to say thank you again for your good work, and I think thank you to everybody for the contributions to the Future for Local Government submission. I think it's outstanding, and it should probably be a must read for everybody in this district in terms of what the council is thinking in terms of recommendations to government, central government, in terms of ways forward to build a better community. So if we aren't all saying subsidiarity every second word, then I'd recommend it to you that we do. We'll put the recommendation that we
Just
receive.
a quick comment.
Oh, sorry, Jenny.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to support the comments made by Kate. I think the quality of the consultation documents coming out of our offices at the moment are really outstanding. You know, they are just top notch, and in some cases a little bit provocative, and I absolutely support that. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Jenny. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Item 5.5 is the committee work programme. Who would like to sit in the hot spot for this?
That was bad. That was a very badly timed joke. That was a joke. Okay.
That's all right, Elise. You're allowed to crack jokes. It's all good.
Got to have some, lightness in this
Yes.
process as well, don't we?
You're right.
It's all being quite heavy, but yeah, thank you very much for all the feedback. And I want to, if I can take a moment, Madam Chair, to thank the team who have worked on all of the documents that you've mentioned and worked through. And we really appreciate everything that you've contributed. So thank you. So to the Strategy and Policy Committee work programme. So this is a report for noting. I want to note that the work programme is draft and it will be updated throughout the year to ensure any new reports and any changes are included. So this is to enable forward planning, so you have some oversight over what is coming over the year. In terms of the policy and strategy items, I think you're well aware of the annual plan process now. We have mentioned the cemeteries and crematoria process. All of the other items are further down the year and are coming up later, so I won't mention those yet, but I am happy to take questions. And if you have questions about the planning items, I was going to ask Justin to speak, but he has left the room. So I will have to say that is it from me, unless Lance wants to add anything.
No, not at this stage. My apologies. The live stream is way behind. So it just started the last paper, so I thought I was coming in.
Cool, good excuse. Cool, if I can just yes, it's a get out of jail free card just once. If I can just echo and perhaps in a slightly different way, this is a very much an evolving work programme as we settle into what this committee is being charged with doing. So yeah, keep an eye on it. It's a good idea just to see what's coming up, what policy work is happening and when it will get to this committee. So, and then it'll be interspersed with when we're hearing submissions, and that's a pretty live issue. We can't necessarily foresee to the end of the year, but this is certainly we'll have the standing items for you to forward plan. Michael, do you have a question?
Yeah, just a very simple one. The parking bylaw that's on hold, is that referring to changes in how we park and the amount we spend in the park, or is it completely different?
The parking bylaw covers a wide range of things, and it would include where parks are, as well as charges for parking. So what we've decided, because of staff capacity, as you can see, we've got a fairly long list of things, that we are going to start that review later in the year, and it will be done in time for the long-term plan. So if there's any changes to parking or parking fees, that will be able to be included in the long-term plan process, and will come into effect then from, gosh, which year are we in? Will come into effect from 1st of July 2024.
That makes perfect sense. Thank you.
No further questions? We've got a recommendation up there that we receive the report committee work program for 2023. Would someone like to move that? Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Philippa. Any further discussion? All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you, everybody. That brings our meeting to a close. Thank you for your contribution and participation this morning. We'll just close our hui with a karakia. I oha ki runga